Hello, everybody. Miss B here. Just wanted to check in with you all. For those of you who know me, know that I'm an advocate against abuse, all kinds, just because I speak through my lived experiences and prefer to use them as a tool to help others to either learn from or prevent being in the same situations. And so, since I've been speaking out more publicly in this format. I've had several people contact me to request that I continue in this path with more details, more specifics, more information on how they can prepare or they can actually prevent themselves from falling in some of the same traps. And so, what I wanted to talk about today was the ways in which cults, and I'm not calling anyone in particular a cult, although I do have strong feelings that certain places are cults. At this point, I just want to share what some of the signs of a cult might be and ways in which you can evaluate your current religious environment to see if it has some of those tendencies to lend it to be a cult. But before we get started, the first thing I need to do is, and this is based on lived experience, uh, speak to the God that formed me, my children, and everything that there is, and call upon that God and all of the heavenly beings that work for that God to protect me, my children, and everything associated with us. To block any harm, we rebuke any harm, any evil eyes, curses, bad things spoken about us, and we call down the blessings, the favor, and the support from that God and the heavenly beings that work for Him. Um, and that's important. That's something I will be doing going forward because I've noticed when I began speaking out at this particular organization, I won't call it a church, I came under attack and spiritual attack. And over time, I will share some of that more specifically. Um, and as I began to speak more publicly in these formats, the spiritual attack increased. And I know it's definitely related to that particular place. So, isn't that sad? It's supposed to be a religious organization to elevate you and bring you up and help you get to a point of being your better person. Um, and besides all of the foolishness and the trickery and the decadence and everything else, to use Lance's word, that goes on behind the scenes, if you decide you no longer want to drink of that Kool-Aid, you come under attack. And if you speak about it, you've got an organization or you've got a group of people that actively plot, plan, and pray for harm or negativity against you in some way. And what that does actually is that tells me I must be doing something right. I must be hitting a nerve if we would go through those measures, if we would seek the enemy as we purport to be good. We've gone to the enemy's camp to use methods of the enemy to take down our enemies, so to speak. It's kind of strange. That in itself should tell you what kind of people we're dealing with. But anyway, also wanted to share with you, for those of you who don't know, who didn't listen to that bio, if you will. I journal. I've been journaling for years and years and years. I want to say back since probably middle school, middle school, I want to say. I've been journaling, so I've got records and notebooks and stuff. And with the invention of computers, or I shouldn't say invention because I don't know when they were invented. Now we're finding out stuff's been invented long before we even knew about it. But when I got access to word processors and computers, I switched over. And so a lot of electronic stuff. And so I'm able to go back and look at specific things that occurred and add those puzzle pieces into the puzzle that I'm now looking at putting together today. It's come up about, doing a book, and, when you look at it, actually, it would be a series because it's just too much to fit in one book. I don't do a whole lot of reading of 1,000-page books today. I prefer the 400 or 500. I can do that in one sitting or one weekend really quickly, just because life is so busy. So, but those are kind of the disclaimers, the housekeeping stuff. But let's get started. Let's talk about some of the aspects or signs or characteristics of an organization that would lend to be called a cult. For the first thing, submission. That's really, really big. The expectation is that you completely and almost unquestionably trust the leader or the leadership. You don't get to question anything. And this I experienced at that particular location. If you do experience it shot down, it's shot down in your face, but at the same time, they're making a mental note that you may not necessarily be totally indoctrinated. But the expectation is that you submit everything. Leaders are seen as, they're often seen as prophets with special gifts, apostles, or, any other special individual with some unusual or specific connection to God, and no one else in there has that gift. Or if they do, it's only by permission of the leadership. I even heard at one point the leader in my former group, I remember telling them, one of the pastors, that told that pastor his gift came from the leader. His anointing came from the leader. And the leader basically said to him, I anointed you. And pretty much it was one of those things where, how dare you go out and do so well and be so effective? And, they were kind of having a tit for tat type of thing. Well, it wasn't even that. It was the leader, in my opinion, was, just a bit concerned, or maybe a little jealous, if you will, that the other person, the other minister, was getting a lot of support in anything that they did. And so the leader, what usually happens if someone gets too big, you got to shut them down. You got to bring them down and bring them back under submission. And this leader told the subordinate leader, if you will, that his gift came from him. So, but that thought or feeling as if they are the one with the special or unusual gifts, and you only get those gifts if they grant you permission to have them. So it's that hierarchy of those who are better than, those who are elevated, those who are special, and then you have those who are underneath. The more you submit in a cult, the more you submit, the more rewards you get, the more responsibilities you get, the more roles you get. If you're not submissive, then you don't get the rewards, you don't get the roles, you don't get the responsibilities. And in hindsight, I can look back and say, I experienced that. For those of you who are good at defining characters, you know already, I don't easily submit to anyone and or anything. I try to think through my own. I'll take your information and my term is meditate on it. Let me think on it a little bit. Let me kind of play with that. And once my spirit is okay with it, then I can submit, if you want to use that word. But if my spirit's not okay with it, I'm not going to do it. And cults, leadership, that's what they look for. They're sizing you up from day one, and they're looking to see how submissive you will be. Um, and so the next thing, exclusivity. They like to feel that their group is the only one that does this, or one of the few that does some particular thing, or that's so special and has a direct connection with God. Now, I know we've seen this with some of the others, the Branch Davidians, or I forget their name, the Jim Jones down there in Guyana, and some of the others. But the ones that are less known, uh, they do the very same thing. They feel like they're, one of the few true groups that are really speaking to God, that are really hearing from God, and what that leader is hearing is the true word of God, and that leader or those leaders are the ones that hear it and no one else. And if you do hear something, if it doesn't align with what they're in agreement with, then it must be demonic. I've been told that, as a matter of fact, about some of my dreams. Oh, well, the devil gives dreams too. Well, yeah, he does. But that doesn't necessarily mean my dream or my vision is demonic and yours is godly. Could be the other way around, that mine is godly and yours is demonic. But, when you're in someone else's organization, they call the shots. So, then there's the persecution. The thought of, and excuse me, my voice is a little raspy. And once I finish posting my series on autoimmunes, you'll understand why. That's one of the side effects, if you will, that I have to deal with. So from time to time, I will take a sip of water or suck on just a little small blurb of ice. But the persecution, they have the mindset of it's us against them. They are an individual group. If you don't submit into that group, if you don't play ball, if you will, then you're a them. Even if you're a member, if you don't play ball, you are a them. And the goal at that point becomes to bring you totally into the fold or to eject you, period. It's one or the other. So if someone within the group corrects them or challenges them or questions them, then you're on the them side. If as long as you fall right in line, then you're one of us. You're welcomed into the fold, into the family. You may even get, you'll be given more roles. You'll be given more support in things that you do, etc. Control. That's the next biggie of cults. They like to control your actions, your thoughts, your everything. And they do it by repetition. It's one of the first ways they do it. And we all know the brain is such a wonderful thing. But when you hear something over and over and over and over and over, you can't get it out. Well, I won't say you can't get it out, but that's going to be your new. Before you know it, you're going to be spitting that right on back out as if it's your own thought, your own process, your own feelings, if you will. And so repetition is one of the ways in which they control you. Another way that church cults will try to control is they will threaten your loss of salvation. And I had this happen to me pretty much. Unless you do X, Y, Z, God's going to take his hands off of you, and all kinds of, bad stuff's going to happen. I've heard from the pulpit, same thing. Unless so-and-so, someone may have come in. Actually, I'm going to give you an exact example. Someone came in, and they stayed for a while, but they wouldn't submit to what the leadership was telling them. And so, and they let the leadership know. And so leadership stood in the pulpit and told us about how this person had left, and they're going out into the world, and all these bad things are going to happen to them, and then they're going to come back, and they're going to want us to pray for them and help get them back right, type of thing. And that in itself is problematic, because what it says is, I don't, well, not that person, but I'm using myself as an example. I don't get the right to think about what you've told me. I have to hear what you say. I have to accept it and submit to it. Otherwise, I'm doomed. And that's problematic, because it seeks to get you to do things by control, by force, by coercion, instead of by agreement. And if any of you have a psychology background or an education background, you know that getting someone to do something by agreement is much more effective. Um, it's more, what's the word I want to say? It's enjoyed more by all when they do it in agreement. And as a parent, that was one of the things I did with my children. Some say, your kids, you know, when we were coming through, we didn't have a say so, and these new generations of kids have too much say so. Well, there's a medium there. And the medium I chose to kind of steer with was, I give my children the information, I give them the task I would like for them to do, and I get them to agree to do it. And 9 times out of 10, that's the way it worked in our household. I didn't do a whole lot of ordering my children what to do. I shared with them, okay, we have tasks. We have, let's say, Saturday morning and the house has got to get cleaned. Okay, I would do, and this is so strange, people laughed at me when they would come to the house and watch us do it. If they were sleeping over and they saw the process, I actually took a piece of paper and I tore it up into pieces. And of course, there's the standard, each person's bedroom got written on a little piece of paper. And then the common rooms, the living room, the formal dining room, the kitchen, the bathroom, the hall bath, things like that, they all got their piece of paper. And so the ones, for example, the 2 girls, each girl got the piece of paper with their bedroom name on it. And I got mine. And then everything else went into a cup. And they got to pull. And as they pulled out, okay, you got the hall bath, you got the kitchen, you got the dining room, and they kept picking, not we, because I'm mama. They kept picking until all the duties were divided up. And for whatever the interval was, if it was 2 weeks, if it was a month, it was just for that week, whatever the interval was, that's how long they had that task. And that was a system that we agreed upon, just because it's, in my opinion, it wasn't fair to task one child with one particular thing forever and another child with one particular thing. Because what that does, A, is it makes them perfect in cleaning a tub and toilet, but they have no clue how to properly clean the kitchen and the stove and the refrigerator and things like that. So we switched up. And that's how we did it. But we did it, I was able to be successful with it, I feel like, because I got my children's agreement or consent, if you will. Not that I had to have it, because I could have taken them out and just said, this is what you're going to do, and that's that, and shut up, and that's it. But they appreciated it, actually. But back to, with the churches, the cultic churches, they don't give you that option of being in agreement. It's you do or you face consequences. And the consequences, they'll tell you, might be God's going to take his hand off of you, or all these bad things are going to happen to you, or all these bad things that are happening in your life now, if you've got stuff going on, is because you're not doing X, Y, Z. It's always a result of something you're doing or not doing. And to some degree, that's true. But to some degree, it's more a matter of trying to control you. And we know, again, where the head goes, the body will follow. So as long as they can keep repeating, indoctrinating into you what it is you must do, what it is you must think, how you must act, the eventually your head absorbs that, and that's all it knows. And it's going to go ahead and do what? Follow. I'm sorry, the body is going to go ahead and follow. And so, yeah. And then next is isolation. And this is something very big. They minimize your contact with others, those who are outside the group. What I experienced at that church was they kept you so busy with stuff that you never had time for anything else. I know for sure there was a point where if you wanted to visit another church, you had to get permission from leadership. If you didn't get permission from leadership, you were questioned. What were you doing at so and so's church, this particular event, etc., etc.? If for whatever reason you by chance decided to skip an event at the cultic church to be at home with your family or to go on vacation or just to stay home and go to sleep, um, that was questioned. No, the expectation is that you are at all the events. No, you don't go visit another church. Let's say, your favorite, I don't know, Prince, if he was still alive and he came to town and, you got front row seats, you had some money saved and you had the $100, $200, whatever they cost, front row right smack in the middle. And you're like, you don't care what's going on, short of somebody's funeral or hospital, you're going to be at that concert. And, well, if you don't have permission from leadership to go, it's questioned. Another thing about control, which is something I directly experienced there, um, the control of the thinking and practices, when I started speaking out, my contact became limited. People were warned, if you will, or discouraged, it's a better word, discouraged from having contact with me or my children. My husband, well, I won't get into that, but just me and my children. And at some point, my kids will do their spill on this impact to them. But it was hurtful because they'd spent a lot of time with, the other kids. And so now they lose their family, if you will, their church family, their friends, because we won't submit. And that's what happened in cultic churches. They're going to control, they're going to isolate you. If it means tying up your schedule, keeping you so busy with them and everything about them that you can't maintain good relationships outside of them. You're not expected to do anything outside of them unless they know about it and they're okay with it. Yeah, you can go to work. Yeah, you can have a family, but they're going to take more of your time than your family will. And I don't mean your extended family, I mean the household. I mean your husband, wife, two kids and three dogs, whatever it is, they're going to tie up more of you from that. If they want to isolate you from someone in your household, they will do it, which is what I experienced in my marriage from that church. Excuse me, the love bombing. When you first come, they're going to be all over you. They're going to shower you with all kinds of attention, love, hugs, etc. by the group, the leadership, call you out, just sing your praises, anything to help get you to be, I guess, emotionally dependent upon them. So that you're not, because we all have five, Maslow has the 5 levels of need, and one of them is emotional social acceptance, and emotional, I call them cheerleaders, people who are going to pump you up, who are going to encourage you, etc. And so that's just a standard, we all have it. And they tap into that. And that's why it's called love bombing. They shower you with love. They tap into that emotional need. And so when you're getting so much of it there, you're not looking for it elsewhere. You have no desire to get it elsewhere because you're getting it all from them. And your ability to get it from elsewhere begins to weaken, if you will, because basically, if you're pulling away from, let's say, mom and dad, then mom and dad are not able to meet that need for you. And you're not intentionally pulling away, you're just getting so involved in your group that they're meeting those needs now. And the group is fully aware of what they're doing. They know they're doing it. You just don't know. Um, Special knowledge or special information. The leadership will present as if they are, like I said, they're special. They're prophetic. They have direct connection with God. They're the ones who receive the messages. And as I said previously, if you're not an approved leader, if you've not submitted enough, if you're not under control enough, if you've not drunk enough of the Kool-Aid, then no matter what your real gifts are, you won't be in that group of having the special knowledge. And the leader or leaders who have these special knowledges, they're the ones who tell you what's what. They speak directly to God. God says, you're going to be successful in this particular business area. That's the area you need to go in. Doesn't matter what you feel like God told you. Doesn't matter what you feel like, the dream you had, recurring dream you've been having for the last 30 days is telling you. What they say God is saying is what you're supposed to follow. So those are definitely things you want to look at. Interpretations of your sacred scriptures. If it's the Bible, the Torah, whatever your sacred scripture is, their interpretations of those scriptures is their revelation from God, and you're supposed to believe it as they've revealed it to you. You can't believe it as you're getting it, or as you're feeling it, or as you feel like God is revealing it to you. You have to get it, understand it, process it, and act upon it as they have given you the revelation. I mentioned already indoctrination. Pretty much the teachings are repeatedly drilled into you. And it oftentimes, but about the indoctrination, it oftentimes is around or surrounding those special knowledges and gifts. For example, if if your leader is the one who has the special knowledge and ability to hear directly from God and be prophetic, then that's what they keep pumping. They keep pumping and they keep pumping and they keep pumping so that you feel like you can't get that from anywhere else. And I tell you, toward the end of my time there, I used to sit and wonder. And any of you who have their DVDs or CDs from any of the services, or you can go on YouTube or whatever. Well, I haven't given a name, so you can't. But in any of your churches, if you're at a point where your prophet is having to tell you that they are a prophet, that's a red flag. If your prophet is having to prove himself or herself as a prophet, that's a red flag. New members or new visitors that walk in, that's one of the things they target you with. They give you a free prophetic reading. And that free prophetic reading will get you to come back. That's like the hook. That's the seed that's planted. And you'll eventually come back because you want more. And what they'll do is they'll use that and continue to keep you coming back. And before you know it, you're sucked in. Group thinking. And group thinking. It's a matter of keeping the group together, keeping the structure of their organization intact by getting everybody to think and act a certain way. The policies are handed down from leadership, and that's it. And it's kind of like a unofficial or internal enforcement of, like, if you do right, if you follow those policies that are handed down from leadership, you kind of get rewarded. You might get to dance on the dance team, but if you don't, then no, you can't dance on the dance team. Or you might be permitted to have a title, And if you don't know, then you don't get that title. Bottom line, those who follow those rules, you're rewarded with, you're more included and accepted into the group. As soon as you stop following any of their policies, then you're starting to be excluded. You're starting to not be accepted. And sadly, I watched this stuff come out of the pulpit. And at the time that things would happen, something would kind of, feel funny in my spirit. It's like, why did he say that? Why did she do that? And so make a mental note, stick it in the brain somewhere. It'll come out in the wash, as the old folk used to say. And here now that we're in the by and by from that, I can see, yeah, that's exactly what was going on. And then of course, the cognitive dissonance. I think I mentioned this in one of my other videos. They, you avoid or you deny anything that contradicts the group's belief system, if you will. If someone says anything against leadership, because leadership, they've spent so much time drilling into you how great they are, how special they are, how they have the only answers or the direct connection with what is correct and what's right and what you should be doing. If anyone challenges that, and you've been sucked in, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, and someone challenges that, you're going to do all that you can to defend that leadership, to defend that group, because you no longer even have the capacity to think for yourself. And cognitive dissonance in itself pretty much is something that you believed so deeply and so strongly that when the truth hits you, when the truth is presented to you, you struggle even understanding or attempting to understand and accept that truth, because you've been brainwashed or tricked for so long into believing a lie, pretty much. And actually, that's where a lot of America is today, as people are starting to wake up and realize that, a lot of things have been lies. People are in disbelief. That's that cognitive dissonance kicking in. No, 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 it can't be, it can't be. And there are all these reasons and all these defenses. They won't just admit, yeah, we've been lied to on grand scale by our government. Shunning, of course. You get shunned. If you don't fall in line, if you don't keep in step with the policies, the leadership, what they say do, stay under their control, you're shunned and or eventually expelled. But truth be told, before they expel you, they try to meet with you. And at some point, I'm going to do a specific video on this particular meeting that I had before I left that place, because it's very important. It tells a lot. But they will try to meet with you, and in that meeting, they're going to try to reason with you and tap in and give you another dose of whatever mind control they're using to bring you back in line. If it is unsuccessful, then you are expelled. You're told to leave. And it's often done in a very nasty way. You're defamed. All the other members are told to have no contact with you, no matter what. And people have lost their families in this process. If they are successful in reeling you back in, so to speak, then you stay. But, in my case, and when I tell about that particular meeting, I wasn't biting. I wasn't submissive. I wasn't gung-ho. Oh, okay, well, let me drink another cup of Kool-Aid and go forward. And so, I had leadership sit right smack in front of me and encourage. I'll use the word encourage, although it was a little bit more than that. Encourage me and my children to leave and my husband to stay, under the auspices of this is what is godly. This is, what God wants. He wants us to be in two separate churches. Him there up under their submission and their control and manipulation, and me and my children elsewhere. So that's what I lived. That's not what I heard. That's what I lived. Another thing is definitely gender roles. There is control of gender roles and who is to do what. The expectation is that, at least in the organization I was in, women didn't have a voice. You had a voice if you were given a voice, and those women who were given a voice were those who submitted, fell under control, gave all their money, gave all their time. The women who I watched neglect their children's needs so that the needs, in that place could be met. I watched, I'll just say, I chose not to drag my children all around during the week, on Saturdays, Sunday evenings, everywhere else, following behind events, following behind public speaking, doing everything that was going on, because children need to go to school. Well, you can question that. That's a whole nother topic, whether they're going to school or homeschool or whatever, but law says put them in school. So my kids were in school and they were doing homework. And for those who knew me, knew my den had been turned into another classroom. And so when they came home from school, they had more schooling. Besides their homework, they had actual lessons and instructions and review that they had to do for me. Then they had their playtime or free time, whatever you want to call it. They had to eat, they had to bathe, and they had to get down and get their rest. So dragging them out, Bible study during the week, choir practice, this practice, that practice, multiple nights a week. And then on Saturday, all day Saturday, they're loaded up with activities at the church. And then Sunday, they're there all day. When do they get a chance to breathe? When do they get a chance to live? When do they get a chance to rest properly? When do they get a chance to spend time with their families, etc.? So that's one of the ways in which that particular organization control the genders. Women, you keep quiet unless it's kind of a speak unless spoken to type of thing. Children had no voice, and that's a direct quote from senior leadership. Children don't have a voice. Well, I don't agree with that. I think children should have voices. They're people, they're spirits, they're entities, whatever you want to call them, whatever your spiritual path is. And I remember as a child being spoken to by the Most High. And I shut it down because it wasn't encouraged, and I was told, no, don't delve into all of that. And I wasn't guided the proper way in the gifts that were being bestowed upon me as a child that I didn't even know I had. Cults tend to work in certain standards, certain looks. If you'll notice on a regular basis, some of them go to the extreme of there's a certain look. All of the leaders wear a particular outfit or a particular color or a particular type of dress. The women are expected to dress one way, the men expected to dress another way, children expected all these expectations of appearance. And then you have your special days, again, where you've got uniforms. It might be the hair worn a certain way. All women, you put your hair in a bun. Or no makeup. Nobody can wear makeup in here. Or you can't wear earrings. Or your dresses must be down to your ankles. Or for, just pretty much keeping a particular appearance. So everyone must look the same. And that kind of takes me into the whole school uniform thing, which is yet another video with taking away people's individuality. But that's what that appearance does. It takes away your individuality. So the less individuality you have, the more you're succumbing to blending into them. And as we see here, you're becoming more and more of a sheep. So another thing there would be literature. If there are books, tapes, things like that may be on sale or may be available, more often than not, it's going to be either that of the leaders, that material that the leaders put out themselves, their books, their DVDs, their tapes, etc., or persons that they personally approved. It's not like you can go to a bookstore, Barnes and Noble, if you will, and have a myriad of. It's not like you may have, well, I'll tell you this. A pastor once said to me when we first moved here, they said, well, visit every other church you want to, and then come visit my church last. And I asked him, why do you say that? And he says, well, first of all, because I know you, and I know your level, and I know how deep you are, and I know the needs that you have. But I don't want to try to take you away from another church. I don't want to discourage you from visiting anywhere else and all of that. But I want you to go to those other churches, make your assessment, and then come back here. And when you get here, you will see the difference. And I say that to say the leadership in these cults, they're not going to give you those opportunities. They don't want you to get someone else's information. They don't want you to get another revelation of a scripture. They don't want you to get another interpretation of something. They want you to stick with what they're giving you, and that's it. I talked about the time. I talked about, let's see, whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The time is a biggie. They will exhaust all of your time. Every waking moment you have is to be poured into them in some way. And they do it, cleverly. It's not a matter of when you come and you join and they say, okay, we're going to take over your life. But gradually you get added to, remember that love bombing, that giving you duties and assignments and titles and things that ties you up. And while you're there, they're studying you. They're getting every bit of piece of information they can on you. And at the same time, they're making you feel like you're really accepted, you're one of them, etc., etc. And before you know it, that's your whole life. You're there all the time. You know no one else other than them. You date within there if it's permitted. If the leader permits you to date someone, and in some cases, and in my case, what I've witnessed, the leader will tell you who you're supposed to date or who you're supposed to marry. And if you're dating someone that the leader doesn't approve of, action will be taken to sever that relationship. And in my case, I was married to my husband, and the leader did not approve, or leadership did not approve, and action was taken to create discord, sow discord, I think is a biblical term, in the marriage, privately and publicly, from the pulpit, attacks and things like that. So, and I didn't talk about the money, because that's yet a whole nother subject when it comes to, and there's a lot of videos out there about tithing and the legalities of it, whether you're talking Old Testament Mosaic law, or whether you're under the grace, the salvation of grace, and you're no longer under the curse of the law from the New Testament, etc., etc. But bottom line, the expectation is that all your money, all your resources go to that place. That's what a cult is. That's one of the characteristics, if you will. If the expectation is that you fudge on paying your light bill, or you may pay part of your light bill because the group needs, I don't know, a new lawnmower, and they need you to pay everyone to pay extra money or put extra money in. Knowing you have children at home and you fudging on your light bill means they possibly could not have hot water to bathe with, or lights to read and do their schoolwork with, etc., or electricity for the alarm clock to go off for them to wake up in the morning. Doesn't matter, as long as the needs of that particular organization are met. And so, one other thing, guilt by association. I forgot to mention this. I think I kind of hinted on it. One of the leaders I actually referenced earlier, I was saying about how this particular person had kind of a falling out, if you will, with the top leadership, and the top leadership told them that their gift came from him, etc., etc. When a person is expelled or choose to leave, everyone else who remains is pretty much discouraged from having contact. It may be a public statement from the pulpit. It may be just something that's filtered down through one of the policies that's filtered down, or in whatever format it's given. But bottom line, you're expected to sever contact with the exiting person. If you are found to maintain contact with that exiting person, now you're a target, and the goal then becomes to reel you back in. If you are, like me, not an easily submissive person, or you're not easily reeled back in, then that puts you on, the list of to be expelled, or on the chopping block, so to speak. Um, and it's the groups, the cults are often they're not members of mainstream, you know, big organizations. Not that the big organizations are not cults or don't have cult divisions, or smaller churches or whatever, but many of the cults are independent churches or fellowships that may not necessarily align with, some of the bigger organizations, and they've broken off from one of the other denominations. And so those are just some quick identifying things that you can use if you and just a couple quick questions, and then we're going to go ahead and close this one out, because I want to keep these videos to a minimum. They get easier to receive and digest if they're a minimum, and y'all know I can go for hours if you let me. But if you've ever had a Christian leader either imply or say directly that you're rebellious or disobedient to God because you don't follow some instruction they give you, that's a warning sign. Red flag, red flag. Yeah, I've had it. Actually, I never had it anywhere else other than at this particular place that we left. But that's definitely a red flag. If you're not obedient to the word of God that they're telling you is the word of God, then you're rebellious, or you're disobedient. Because you're not taking their advice you're not following God according to them. If you've ever had a Christian leader, I shouldn't say Christian leader, a leader tell you that you've got an evil spirit, or you've got demons on you, because you ask questions or because you don't follow their advice. Well, I tell you what I experienced at this last place. This place was supposed to be a church of healing and deliverance and demonic deliverance, if you will. That was one of the things supposedly the leadership was greatly skilled in doing, and it spent a lot of time doing it, helping people get delivered of their demons so that they can live better lives, etc., etc. And I thought back many times and asked myself, well, if you're so good at finding these demons and help casting them out and delivering people from them, etc., etc., but yet here now, when I've made it very clear to you that I believe a lot of the stuff that you're saying is not godly, and it's your own flesh for your own purpose. And I didn't do that publicly. I did do it privately. You can't, you specifically decide that I've got demons, and that's the word that you spread around to everyone. Stay away from her. She's got some demons on her. You don't want to get the demons that she's got. Red flag, red flag, red flag. If you ever challenge your leader and they see it as an attack on their authority, red flag. Because a true leader, a person who has true intent, would not have an issue with you questioning anything they say. And they wouldn't see it as you question their authority. If they want you to learn, they want you to grow into the better you, they're going to encourage you to ask questions. And they're going to be sitting right there with a cup of coffee or tea or soda, whatever it is they drink, helping you get your questions answered. That's someone who wants you to be the better you, whatever that may be. If someone is shutting down your questions, then they don't want you to grow. And that's probably the biggest red flag of all. So, I say all that to say, think about it. Be very careful, but ask yourself these questions before you align, before you submit yourself to any other group. As I continue to evolve in my spirituality and my faith, I no longer profess one way or the other. And I will not encourage anyone. We all have to do what works for us. But I do say ask the questions before you make the confessions, before you make the submissions, before you enter the agreements. Ask the questions. And if any of these things ring home to you that I've talked about, then you might want to ask some more questions. You might want to spend some more time. What I like to say is get out away from everybody and everything. Find you some grass, find a sun, find some clouds, some sky, some stars, something nature. Connect, tune everything else out, and ask for the answers and guiding you in what you must do. And that being the case, um, let me know what you think. I appreciate questions and comments because that's the only way any of us can grow. So drop them below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.